Hey everybody, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome to Beekeeping for Newbies. Thank you so very much for taking the time to listen. I do appreciate you. As always, feel free to join us in the Discord room at Beekeeping for Newbies. That's NEWBEES.com. Go about halfway down on the page on the left there. There is a link to the Discord room. You can chat with us over there. And if you have nice things to say, reach out to me directly, Jeff at beekeepingfornewbies.com. All right, today is Bee Buzz, episode 15. We have not put out a Bee Buzz in quite some time, so I'm excited to get this out here for everyone. First thing I do want to say is, for those of you listening down in the South, Mississippi, Louisiana, I think I heard somewhere about Slidell, Louisiana. I think it's outside of New Orleans. I know there was a lot of damage down there, so I hope you folks are doing okay. I was watching my favorite weather guy, Ryan Hall, on YouTube. He has a channel called Ryan Hall Y'all. If you're interested in storms, hurricanes, tornadoes, storm chasing, any of those things, Ryan does a great job of real-time coverage. So if you know there are bad storms in your area, check out his channel. I'm not paid or anything to endorse him. I think he's a great guy, and he does a lot of disaster recovery, like support, financial support, following these disasters. So again, it's Ryan Hall Y'all. So good dude. As some of you probably recognized, I did take a bit of a pause on the podcast, and there are several factors kind of at play which caused this. And, I was assembling some notes for this episode. I had pretty detailed breakdown of everything. And, I was going to just lay it all out there and be like, hey, here's where we are, here's what we got. But, I put the notes away, and I came back to them later, reread everything, and I thought, no, I don't think much good is going to come from that. So I deleted all the notes, and the world will never know. But the big reason behind it kind of goes back to what we were told as kids, right? If you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. There were some things that had been sent my way that were pretty irritating, and I thought, well, what purpose does it serve to share that with all of you and then get you irritated too, right? Why share that frustration? And the more I think about it and the more I share it with others, the longer it has life. Whereas if I can just find a way to ignore it, then it dies. So that's what I decided to do. But I do want to say one thing. Every episode that I put together, whether it's the full episode or a Bee Buzz, it's all done out of my love and my passion for beekeeping, as well as how great that it makes me feel when someone else, shares their stories of the fun they're having, the things that they're learning, with beekeeping, the things they're doing with their families, how it's bringing them together. I really, truly believe that, if you allow it to, and if you're in the right frame of mind for it, it can be very life-changing. It can be therapeutic. It can be a lot of fun. Now, it will drive you a little crazy from time to time. It's not all rainbows and unicorns and all that kind of stuff, but I always do the absolute best I can to provide the most accurate information in a way that is clear, decisive, easy to understand, fun. If for some reason my words, my thoughts, delivery, or anything else is offensive, or if it doesn't adhere to someone's life requirements, philosophies, subject of division that they're engaging in, or whatever it might be, maybe we're just not the best fit for each other, right? And that's okay. That is okay. But I would ask respectfully that you keep your feelings that may be slightly on the abusive side to yourself. And if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. And that's it. Okay, so moving on. One shift that I want to make with the Bee Buzz is I wanted it to be a bit more kind of chatty or social. So if I have personal updates to share, I'm going to do that here. The main episodes are going to be 100% beekeeping. So we're going to jump into whatever the topic is, and that's it. It's all beekeeping. This way, if you're a person who's like, yeah, I really don't want to hear what you have to say, I don't care about your personal thoughts, personal updates, I just want the bee information, this provides that separation. So as an example, there was a viewer that commented that I talk too much about radios and other things that are unrelated to beekeeping. Well, the last thing that I would want anybody to do is to think that I have any kind of a life outside of beekeeping, that I wake up every day and I just do bee stuff 24/7. But I do aim to please. So hopefully this separation will address that. I will also do my best to refrain from future comments with regard to government oversight and individual rights in beekeeping. Now, in my opinion, there are some rules out there that are a little bit silly, ordinances and laws and things in this country that are mostly written by people who don't know anything about bees or did not consult with any bee experts during the drafting of these rules, regulations, and ordinances. But again, I will do my best to stay out of it and be kinder and gentler. But just know, I will say, if you do want to be involved in things, if you don't like the way something is written in your area, right, engage your local town councils, engage those legislators to educate them. Typically at the lowest level, these people are a lot likely to be, a lot more accessible to you than someone at maybe the state or the federal levels. Try to get a hold of them and see how receptive they are to having a discussion with you, and maybe changing things a little bit, or modifying or tweaking things that might be beneficial to all parties involved. One thing I will tell you straight up, do not even think about it. You absolutely do not want to advocate for fully automatic smokers. That will not end well. Semi-automatic smokers only. Okay, so what am I up to? I have been doing some things with some swarm traps lately. I think I got, and I've posted this in the Discord room. I think everybody's had a chance to see it, but it's basically like a cut sheet that a guy put together. It's I should have got the guy's name and gave him a plug, because I really appreciate the time he took to put this cut list together. But it basically shows you how to make 3 swarm traps from a single piece of plywood. So I got 2 pieces of some OSB. I cut enough for 6. I made and hung 3. I just need to assemble the other 3 and get them hung as well. So I do need to run to Harbor Freight. They've got, I think on the Inside Track Club, they've got some ratchet straps for sale for like $8 for a 4-pack or something. I usually use one of those per swarm trap to hang it up in the tree. Definitely need to get that wrapped up here in the next couple of days. We got some rain coming in, so I may not get a lot done right now, but maybe over the weekend. I also have a ton of gear that I'm in the process of getting cleaned up. I'm going to be selling some things for some local folks, but there are other things I need them to get them be ready. But that's another thing that's occupying some time. I'm also clearing some space to add a little more room to the yard. So I'm trying to clear out space for 2 separate areas of 50 colonies, but that's a little separate. We'll keep you updated on that as that progresses. All right, enough of the small talk here. Let's jump into some bee business. So we don't have a whole lot of questions here. I think I've just got a couple of them that came up. And I'm actually looking in the Discord room right now, and I do not see anything new. So we're going to go through these, and then that'll get us caught up, and we'll be good to go. Question number 1. Hey, Jeff, first year beekeeping this spring. I have 2 nukes ordered from a local apiary. The beekeeper I ordered from is offering either an overwintered queen, so I'm assuming now this would be a 2023 queen, or a brand new 2024 queen, both at the same price. He suggests a brand new queen, claiming overwintering success is better. What are the pros and cons? What would you go with? So if you look at that last statement that the guy made here, he suggests a brand new queen, 2024, just born, claiming overwintering success is better. Okay, so the 2023 queen that just overwintered has a 100% success rate, and the new queen has not overwintered, so her overwintering success rate is 0%. So I'm not sure what the guy was going after when he told this listener about that. He had to have had something else in mind. Maybe he was thinking that a queen that came from the overwintered queen would, have a better likelihood and would live longer since she's a year younger. I don't know. But typically the queen is going to be most productive in her second year. In this case, she's already proven that she can overwinter. That's the queen I want. I want the 2023 queen that overwintered. I think that's the best choice. All right, the next question here. A local is advertising that he needs, real quick. So this was from the Discord room. It was absolutely hilarious. But a local is advertising that he needs a big hive removed from his property. Quote, need gone, end quote, he says. He wants someone to pay him $100 to come and solve this problem. So I just thought that was absolutely hilarious. So there's not a scenario I can think of where I'm going to be paying somebody to go pick up, unless the guy says, hey, I've got like 4 hives that are free. As long as you get this one out of my, awning or whatever, you can have the other one. Like if there's something else involved in it, okay, maybe I might throw you $100 or whatever, but you're doing a service for this person by getting rid of this, and you're potentially not even going to charge them. And then he wants you to pay him. So that's a no-go. Now, on a sidebar from this, one recommendation that I would have is you may want to come up with something that is sort of like a general liability waiver, agree to hold harmless, like some kind of a document that you would give anybody if you're collecting a swarm on their property. Now, in general, if something happened, like let's say you climb a ladder and you fall down on the ladder, like technically you're on their property, their homeowner's insurance might be responsible. That's between you and them. But if I'm you, you got to think, let's say you have a branch that's 10 feet off the ground. You get on a ladder, guy's outside, he's out there, his dog is out there, his granddaughter's out there. You shake some of the bees down, half of them go into a package you have in the bottom, the other half end up on a tarp. Dog gets stung and the granddaughter gets stung. And now the guy's trying to sue you, right? Again, is that going to happen? 99 times out of 100, never going to happen. But you're going to have, everybody likes to sue somebody, right? It's a path of least resistance for a lot of people to get some cash. I would be walking up with a document that says, it has a whole bunch of things outlined, but some of them are, you agree to hold harmless for anything that happens to this, or that. Honeybees cannot be controlled. They may sting you or anyone around here as pets or anything else. Please make sure that you understand this. Like whatever, like outline everything and have them sign it. That's number one. Number two, if you have any other kind of a business, even if it's not related, like see if you can tack on a little general liability policy or something like that. Because again, like you pull up in a nice truck and you might be leaving your truck there if somebody gets stung or something stupid happens. Just be really, really careful when you're going to somebody's house to do something if you don't know who they are. Get something. Take a video of them saying, I understand it's 100% my responsibility. I don't know, something. Okay, next one. Colony died over winter and expressed concern. Oh, okay. So the colony died over the winter, and the person who wrote this, they kind of had some concerns that they broke the cluster too soon. They said that they had 40 pounds of honey in the hive. They're just not sure, like, why. Why would the hive die when they got 40 pounds of honey? So there's a lot of kind of moving parts here, a lot of things that could be, things that could be related to. I'm going to throw out a whole lot here because I really don't have a definitive answer. And when you say, the idea of breaking the cluster too soon, the cluster will break up on warm days, right? You get a day where, it's 30s, 40s for weeks on end. And then you get a day in the 50s and 60s, cluster's going to break up. The bees are going to go out. They're going to do things. They're going to work around the hive, do things outside. And as it cools off, they'll come back together and recluster again. So I don't know that I can understand exactly what the idea of the cluster breaking too soon would mean. Now, it's not uncommon for bees. Typically, the cluster, will move as a kind of a body of bees together to consume stored food throughout the hive. Now, it's possible that maybe for some reason, maybe there was like a queen excluder and the honey was above it and some of the bees went up and came back down. They got some feed and brought it back down, but the whole cluster wasn't able to move. I can see where scenarios where maybe they would move not collectively as a group. My gut points, though, to one of two things. And again, it's 100% speculation because I wasn't in the hive. I didn't see pictures. I don't know for sure. But one, the cluster was just not big enough in the fall. You just didn't have enough bees to keep them warm in the fall. You didn't go into the winter with enough bees to keep them warm through the winter. And as bees started to die off over time, you were just left with not enough to even keep the cluster the temperature that it needed to be. That's one thing that could be, and that's a particularly common problem with smaller colonies that are, you get these packages or even a nuke in the spring. They don't ramp up in time. They don't have enough food stores built up. And you go into the winter, they just don't have enough. They don't make it. So that's not uncommon. One thing that is very, very common, and I mentioned this, in fact, on another episode earlier I was recording, but if you are thinking about beekeeping and you're going through all the things you want to buy and things you want to gather to become a beekeeper, you're saying, okay, well, I want to have a smoker to smoke the bees. I want to have a hive tool. I want to have this. I need hive bodies. I need frames. And you're going through all the stuff. If on your list somewhere you don't have something that says, and this is what I'm going to buy and use to treat my bees for Varroa. If you don't even have that on your list, I would stop there. I wouldn't even keep bees. Like, don't go into it with the idea that my bees are special, my bees are different, they won't have to worry about Varroa. That only happens to people in other states, in Georgia or whatever. No, it's going to happen. They're going to get you eventually. Have a plan for mites and mite checking. If nothing else, do your checks. I would say at a minimum, no matter what, at a minimum, fall and spring. That's where you want to do it. And particularly like in the spring, the drones have a longer brood cycle. So the Varroa do particularly like to go towards the drones. So when you have drones in those spring hives, check your drones for your mite counts. But you don't know what you don't know. I think it's entirely possible, probable, maybe likely. I don't know exactly. But in this case, again, it's a lot of moving parts that we don't have all the information. But if you have a mite issue going into the winter, it doesn't improve. It doesn't get better. The bees are obviously going to be weakened. Their immune system are weakened. They're more susceptible to other illness. There's so many reasons why Varroa is going to be bad. So make sure you're pulling your numbers in the fall. You're treating in the fall, and again, repeating the same process in the spring. So I'm sorry that I don't have a real definitive answer. I would say it's most likely either an issue with Varroa or they just were not enough bees going into the fall-winter time frame, or even potentially a combination of the two. All right, the next one I have is, Jeff, do you mark your queens? And if so, what is your preferred method? I've seen videos of people just picking her up barehanded, which seems super risky. The various cages seem a little bit safer, but still pretty intimidating. It'd be really useful to have her marked for a variety of reasons, but there's only one of her if you screw up and hurt her. So, what do you do? What I do is I get a queen cage. The ones I use have a stopper on one side and a flip open top on the other typically, but it doesn't matter, whatever works for you. Get a queen cage, a queen marker. I take the marker, it's kind of like a miniature spray paint can. You just shake it up and a little ball rattles around on the inside. I test it first to make sure that it writes easily and I can make my colored circle. And then I will put those down usually next to the colony, usually like 3 or 4 feet away on top of another one or something else. Be careful in the summertime because sometimes the metal lids on adjacent colonies can be really hot. So you don't want to set her down on that, but put her down on something. So I will pick her up with my left hand when I find her. I use my left index finger and my thumb. And as you view the queen from above, you have head, thorax, abdomen. The thorax is that area kind of in between her shoulders. There is like they call the cleft. It's just a big circle on the back of her shoulders. You cannot miss it. Just grab her on the sides, and you don't have to squeeze very hard, just enough to get her to where she can't get away from you. And then I walk her a couple feet over, take that marker that's already ready to go, draw my little circle on it, put her into the queen cage. And like I said, once she's in my hand, the whole process is about 6 seconds. I mean, it's super quick. You take a few steps, you grab the marker, you make the circle, put her in the cage, go back and finish your inspection. And then, 3, 4, 5 minutes later, whenever you're done, make sure you just want that paint to dry and then go ahead and put her back in. I recognize it's kind of a scary thing, right? I don't know what else to tell you because there are different queen marking cages. I've seen them online advertised. I've never bought them or owned them, but they have a little plunger and you put the queen in there and you push her kind of up to the top with the plunger and then you kind of reach through and try to mark her. I've never tried to do it. I guess they might work. It just seems weird to me. I feel like I would crush her. I feel like that's more of a risky thing than doing it the way that I do it. But, you kind of got to do what works for you. If you find something else or you try something different, yes, it is very, and so the bad thing too is that you may think, oh, I did everything perfectly. It's great. But you broke an antennae or you broke a leg or something weird that you can't even see. She goes back in, they think something's wrong with her and they supersede her, right? I mean, that can happen. It's not the most uncommon thing either. There's some weird things that happen with bees, and that is certainly one of them. I guess the one recommendation that I would have is if you have other hives available and maybe you have other queen cells that are coming around that you could use in case something happened during this process, you'd be able to throw a queen cell in, or if nothing else, if you've got some eggs and young larvae in the hive you took her from, so that worst case scenario, if they had to make an emergency queen cell, they could. So I don't know if that's going to be a great answer for you. Like I said, it's a practice thing. Once you've done it 4 or 5 times, it's not that hard. One thing you could possibly do is if there's an apiary near you, you could just ask them hey, can I give you some free labor one day to learn how to mark queens or whatever? You might have to do a whole bunch of bee crap all day, but maybe they would let you mark all the queens. Or if nothing else, maybe they would let you mark 10 of them or 15 of them or whatever. A lot of places are really excited and happy to have free labor, so that's certainly an option. Next question was someone had asked me about oxalic acid pads, the OA pads. I've actually got a friend of mine who uses them. She's really happy with them. I think that they do make a lot of sense for people. For those who aren't familiar, it's essentially like a pad that's probably about, I'm going to say a 4x6 pad. And I don't know the exact process of what it all gets mixed up with, but you're basically mixing oxalic acid with some other chemicals, and you saturate the pads in it. And then when you go to your colony, you open it up, you put a couple pads on, and it kind of becomes like a time release oxalic acid. So if you're familiar with oxalic acid, it's typically delivered in a vapor. I have a vaporizer. They work great. The challenge is if you have brood, the vaporizer can't pass through the brood. So you need to at least be treating through a cycle that would cover all of the bees in the colony. So, of course, the worker cycle being 21 days. And if you want to include, your drones, you're looking at about 24 days. So you kind of have to treat like every week for about 3 weeks. Everybody does it kind of differently. Some people are like, I do it every 3 days for 4 weeks or whatever. Like, I'm not going to arm wrestle anybody over the way that they do it. For me, it's usually once a week for 3 or 4 weeks, and that seems to be okay. Yeah, so you want to use that to treat. And like I said, it won't penetrate the cappings of the capped brood. So that's why you do it repeatedly. The OA pads, when you put those on, you drop the pads on, you close things up, and you just take them off in 30 days and throw them away. So I have not personally used them, so I can't speak to the good, bad, or indifference of how well they work, but I know they're very popular with a lot of people. The only, I guess, real drawback to me is I think about the amount of prep work that goes into it, and then storing them, and then getting them to the bees, and then having to put them in the hive, taking them out of the hive. And if you're managing 2, 3, 5 colonies, 10 colonies, it's probably not a big deal. But if you're managing 50, 100, 200, 500, sure is a lot easier to walk up, have a hole with a little cork in the back, pop the cork out, stick the hole of the vaporizer in there, put your vaporized OA in. 30 seconds later, you're done. You're moving on to the next one. Again, it's all a matter of what works for you. But I think that from what I hear, it is very effective, and people who are using it are happy with it. So I hope that answers that. The last one I have on the list, it's not so much a question as it is an observation, but there's a gal named Susie in our Discord room, and she's been sharing some fun and excitement that she's been having with one of her hives lately. And her words are, and I quote, "My bees are saucy," end quote. And what she's basically meaning is that her bees are a bit on the a little spicy, a little aggressive, I think is the right word. I've talked about this many times before, and I'll bring it up again. When you're going through your colonies and you're doing your inspections and you're making notes, you always want to be mindful of what I consider personally. And again, you're gonna develop your own things that are right for you. But what I consider to be the 5 key traits of a good colony: their honey production, their ability to overwinter, their tendency to swarm, their hygiene, how well they keep the hive clean and free from disease, and lastly, their temperament. Some of those things are more important to others and to different people. Some people say, look, I don't really care about getting a lot of honey. If I get a little bit, that's fine. I just want to be around the bees. I want them to be gentle, and I want to be able to do inspections without a veil and no gloves. Cool, right? Then you know what you're looking for, and you can kind of go down the path of breeding for that or buying queens that will support that. There are some bees that really are bad, like on their tendency to swarm. I think Russians are one of them, and there's several others that just, man, it gets early spring and boom, they're on their way out. That's kind of a challenge to me. That's a kind of an issue. But I've had colonies before that are just really mean and ornery, and yet they will produce like 2 times as much honey. And it's like, oh, crap. Like I had one years ago where I just literally kicked it over, and I'm like, you're done. You're out, bye. Because I just wasn't going to put up with them anymore. So that's kind of an individual decision that you're going to have to make as to the things you can and cannot tolerate. Now, one of the things that Susie brought up, which I think is a potentially a real thing depending on where your bees are, is the liability around it. I think that she had mentioned that hers were in the front yard. So theoretically, somebody could, I guess, be walking by, riding a bike or whatever past the house, and they're so aggressive that you don't even have to be doing an inspection. If you're just in the vicinity, they're going to come over and let you know what's up. So definitely recognize as you're raising your bees and as time passes, there are certain characteristics and things that are normal and certain things that are going to be normal for you. So if that honey production is really, really important, you might put up with the ones that are real meanie butts. But, I prefer bees personally. What I'm trying to look for is hygiene and ability to overwinter and temperament. Those are kind of the 3 things I really go for. Honey production, I'm not in a position with the facilities and everything to produce honey right now with any kind of volume. So It's not really my focus. But again, your priorities may change over time. But when you have bees like that, especially when you're new and you're just trying to get your rhythm and get your game together and figure out how to do everything, and every time you get around them, they're getting really aggressive towards you, it sounds like it's time to requeen. So when I say requeen, that's basically, I don't recommend killing your queen and then having them make a new queen, because they're still using half of the same genetics, most likely. The odds are pretty good. I mean, obviously you're going to be getting the queen's daughter queen, and then of course she'll mate openly and freely, but there's still a strong possibility you're going to have those angry genetics. So I would recommend keep her in place for now. Reach out to a reputable supplier, and I would talk to them on the phone if you can. Say, hey, listen, I've got some bees that they're just really, really aggressive, and I'm looking for a queen that has a really good temperament. Can you guys help me out? And you may pay more when you're going to a more reputable dealer or apiary that has done some very specific breeding. But if you're in a bad situation where you can get one for 25, 30, 35 bucks, anything that is not your queen and from her genetics is probably going to be better than what you have right now. All right, so I hope that helped everybody, and I hope you enjoyed the bee buzz, which we haven't done in quite a long time. But feel free to, again, reach out to the team here and join us in the Discord room. Let's go to Beekeeping for Newbies, NEWBEES.com. About halfway down, you get the Discord link on the page. You can check that out from a mobile device or online through the laptop, desktop, tablet, whatever you want to use. And if you're going to be nice, reach out to me, Jeff at beekeepingfornewbies.com. And that is about all that I have for you. We got more stuff teed up coming here in the near future, and I'm looking forward to talking to all y'all soon. Take care.